Hello, DCIO. Sorry about that. Hello, everybody. If we have not met before, my name is Will, and I am on staff here with Inside Out, which means I get to hang out with you guys week to week, which I absolutely love. But to start out today, I just want to say, honestly, guys, I'm so glad that you're here with sincerity. There's a lot of different places you could choose to be on a Sunday evening. And I'm so glad that you chose this place, whether it's your first time or your first time in a long time or you are a veteran here. I truly believe every night at Inside Out is not wasted. So I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm so glad that you're here as we're continuing our conversation that we've been in for the last 3 weeks now, our series called Witness, which is all about if you are a Jesus follower in the room, that your faith is not meant to be kept to yourself. And we've been kind of exploring all the different avenues of our life in which we can tell people and show people Jesus in and through our lives. And we're going to continue that conversation today, but what I really wanted to start off thinking about and feeling is something that everybody in this room has felt at some point in time, and that is being left out. Everybody in this room, at some point or another, unhappily, has felt left out. For me, that happened when I was in high school a lot with my brother, actually. If you guys don't know, I have an older brother, and when I was a freshman in high school, he was a senior in high school. And all of his friends were kind of like also our family friends, which lived in the same neighborhood as us, which means most every afternoon and weekend you could find him and all of our friends, which was also friends with like all of like their parents were friends with my parents, so like we were very tightly interwoven. They were either at our house or just right around the corner, right? Because we all lived in the same neighborhood together. So you think like I would be included in all of that because we're all close, right? Families are interwoven, like I said, all of that kind of stuff, but actually not. I rarely got invited to any of the things that my brother and his close friends were doing. And I was often very left out. And as a freshman in high school, that's even more difficult as you're already trying to figure out high school and already trying to figure out new relationships at a new school. It was really difficult for me. Often left me feeling isolated and awkward a lot of times. It wasn't necessarily intentional, but I felt it a lot. For you guys, it might look a little different. Maybe you don't have siblings or your siblings are a little bit nicer to you than mine was. Maybe at some point in time you've gone, hang out with a couple friends, and you very quickly realize, y'all tell me if y'all have experienced this before, that you are third wheeling very quickly, right off the bat. Because somehow you find yourself walking like 10 feet behind them, and they're like, walking on cloud 9, it seems like, and you're like, why on earth am I here? Feeling left out, a little awkward, right? Maybe you walked into the cafeteria one day, you take a seat at the lunch table, and everybody around you is chatting and laughing about a show that you've never seen before. So I've definitely done this. You kind of like pull like you're kind of watching, and when everybody else laughs, you kind of like, like laugh along with them. Hopefully no one asks you your opinion on the show or who your favorite character is, right? Awkward. Not a big feeling of being left out, but definitely awkward, right? Being left out. Maybe for you guys, maybe you're at a party one weekend and you're hanging out with a group and somebody next to you who you've met multiple times and you think you guys are kind of buddy-buddy, right? In the middle of the night, they kind of like nudge you and they're like, hey, what's your name again? That one hurts. Leaves you feeling awkward, right? Isolated. And that's often what being left out makes you feel. Again, awkward, isolated. It kind of leaves you with this pit in your stomach sometimes of like, hey, do I actually belong here? Do I actually have a place to stand here? If I left early, would anybody actually even notice? You might feel that way in this room. Sometimes. What's worse about this feeling of being left out is it's often not intentional. And let me explain. The group that you're being left out of when you are the outsider, they're usually just doing their own thing, right? They're just hanging out with their same group of people they always hang out with. They're just telling their stories that they've always told. They're telling their jokes that they always tell. They're just doing what they do every single week. Oftentimes, it's not intentional being left out. But what's also true is that when you're the new one, and when you're the outsider, it never feels that way, does it? It never feels like it's not intentional. It never feels like the in-group is just carrying on and doing what they always do week to week. No, when you're the outsider, it feels intentional, doesn't it? It feels like there's no place for you. It feels like there's no invitation for you. It feels like there is no space for you. You feel like an outsider, even if it's intentional or not. What's true is this: leaving someone out is often not intentional, but it never feels that way to the outsider. And I think everybody in this room has probably felt this before in some space of your life. Like I said, I felt it at home a lot. We explored some other examples earlier in various different places. We often feel this. I want to talk about this space specifically, and honestly, for most of the night, I'm going to talk kind of specifically actually about this place, Inside Out. Believe it or not, I hope you know this, but us as Inside Out staff think about this concept a lot, because we put a lot of brain power into thinking about how we make this space, Inside Out, a place where someone can walk in and feel welcome for the very first time. We put a lot of brain power actually into thinking about how we do that well. But of course, we don't control everything that happens here in Inside Out, because we do not control you guys, nor do we want to. But we can't control if someone who walks in here for the first time is brought into a conversation or kind of just ignored. We don't control if someone is asked about their life when they're here for the first time, or if they just listen to everybody else talk about their own. We don't control if someone feels welcome when they walk in the room, or if they just kind of sit on the fringes. And if you've been around here long enough, you guys have probably experienced one of three things when it comes to this kind of subject. One, you have seen this happen before to someone else who's walked in the room for the first time. Two, you have felt these things before as an outsider. Or three, you may have been the person who never noticed they were there, who never noticed that they weren't being involved in the conversation, who never noticed that they weren't involved in the games or involved in small group. And guys, I'm not coming for anybody, because like I said, it's often not intentional. Often we're just doing our own thing, right? We're just coming to Inside Out again. We're just hanging out with our group that we always do. We're just telling our same jokes. We're just hanging out with our clique. Like we're just hanging out with our crew, like we always do. It's often not intentional, but I want us to think about how it never feels that way to the outsider today. And if you've been here again for a little bit of time, you can probably think of a person actually, or a name. Someone who maybe came once or twice, or maybe they came for a long time. Or maybe they came to transit, but they don't come now. Somebody who gave it their best shot, who put their best foot forward, took a risk in coming here and trying to connect, and now you really don't see them anymore. And I'm just going to speculate. I don't know. I don't know what everybody's situation is, but it's possible that person gave it their best shot, and they felt like an outsider. They didn't feel welcome. And again, guys, I don't want anybody right now to feel guilty. I'm not calling on anybody's names. I'm really not, because this is often not intentional. But I want us to think about it, because it's important how people feel when they walk into this room. And if you're new in the room tonight, if this is your first time to Inside Out, or again, first time in a long time, I'm so glad you're here tonight. Because as we talk about this subject and we talk about this topic today, this is what our goal is. That's what we're going to kind of investigate today. This is what we hope you guys experience when you walk in to Inside Out. So I'm setting kind of the standard. And I hope you guys can kind of look at your experience here, engage where we're at, and hopefully maybe even make us better. And if we're not doing this perfectly, which of course we're not, I hope that we can learn. We can learn from you, and we can learn from each other. So I'm so glad that you're here tonight, because again, it is important how you feel when you walk into this place. It matters. So knowing this, that leaving someone out is often not intentional, but it never feels that way to the outsider. What I want us to do today is be inspired by somebody who thought about the outsider a lot. Not actually because he was an outsider, but because he was an expert at making outsiders. And the person that I'm talking about is the guy we talk about here a lot. His name is Paul. And what you need to know about Paul is that he was a Jesus follower. And Paul actually wrote a significant chunk of your New Testament, which is the second half of your Bible. But before he did any of that, Paul was a Pharisee, which means, big word, which means that in his day and age, Paul, as a Pharisee, was part of the in group. Like, he was the it group. He was a influential person in his politics and culture at the time. As a Pharisee, that means he's an expert in Jewish religion, okay? Which means that his job during his day and age is to decide who's in and who is out. That's literally his job, is who's following the rules, who's doing all the things right. That person, they're in the group. If they're not, if they don't believe the things we believe, if they don't practice the things we do, if they act differently from us, they're out. That's his job as a Pharisee, and he was one of the best at it from what we know. He was very highly ranked, again, a very influential person in his day and age. Paul was an expert in outsiders because Paul was an outsider maker. He was a professional at doing it. And he did this until our friend Paul met Jesus. And that whole story of Paul meeting Jesus and his kind of conversion to following Jesus is in the book of Acts. That's the book right after your Gospels. And the story is kind of right in the middle there. And basically the whole rest of that book is talking about what Paul does after he meets Jesus. See, Paul is radically changed when he meets the person of Jesus. He realizes that his profession of being an outsider maker is totally wrong. And he goes and he flips his whole life upside down. And he goes from being an outsider maker to being an outsider eliminator. He makes it his purpose from then on out to make sure that everybody knows that they have a place. And he does this by traveling all over the Mediterranean Sea. And he plants all of these different churches all along, all over the place. And he teaches the people who lead those churches, he teaches them, hey, everyone has a place here. Everyone is welcome in this place, no matter what they believe, no matter what they profess. Like, they have a place here. This is for everybody. It's not exclusive. And what I want us to look at tonight is a letter that Paul writes to one of these churches. He actually didn't plant this one. From what we know, he might have not even visited it before he wrote the letter. But this is a church that he would have had influence in, that he would have, empowered somebody, a leader, to go and plant. So Paul is writing to this church, and he's writing to them, as he often would, to encourage them and sometimes correct them in their behavior. And the little section that we're going to read tonight, this is out of the letter of Colossians. If you have a Bible with you, you can flip to Colossians chapter 3. This little section here is what I think Paul says is his expert strategy in being an outsider eliminator. How he eliminates the outsider by saying everybody is welcome here. And so I want us to investigate it a little bit today. And we're going to break it down verse by verse. We're not going to go through a lot of it, but we're going to break it down verse by verse, and I'm going to kind of break down why I think this is Paul's expert strategy in doing this, and how it can kind of inspire us in our tension that we're feeling here, and how it can be hard to even notice the outsiders in the room. So we're going to start. This is chapter 3, verse 12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved. To start us off, we're going to stop right here because this is important. This is Paul letting us know who his audience is. Again, he's writing to a church in Colossae. Okay? And he's telling us here that he's writing to believers there. People who believe in God, who believe in Jesus, who are followers of Jesus. Again, it's God's chosen people. Okay? But he's telling us his audience, but he's also telling us his reason for writing. And this is kind of hidden in here. He's saying basically, because you are a Jesus follower, as you are a Jesus follower, he continues on, clothe yourself in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. Again, he's writing to Jesus followers saying, because you are a Jesus follower, as a Jesus follower, you don't just believe something, you follow someone. And that should change the way that you act. And again, I think this is Paul's expert opinion in how to eliminate the outsider. He says to clothe yourself, which is kind of a funny way of talking about our character, which he goes on and lists afterwards, right? But if you think about it, it's actually really clever. Clothe yourself, he says, like the clothes that you put on, which is on the outside of your body, which is the first thing that people see when you're walking around. This is what people around you should see when they look at you. They should see compassion. Are you tuned in to how someone else in the room might be feeling? Clothe yourselves with kindness, Paul says. Not just like don't be rude or don't be mean, but do you actively seek to be kind to the people around you? Do you clothe yourselves with that? Is that the first thing people see when they notice you? Clothe yourselves with humility. Do you have this humility to recognize that you are not the most important person in the room and that your group is not exclusive? Clothe yourselves with gentleness and patience. Are you willing to let someone new warm up to this place? Or do you just expect them to know all of the things we do here? Expect them to just understand how our evenings run here and Inside Out. Clothe yourselves in forgiveness, he says. Are you willing to let that person back in who has done something hurtful to you? Not because what they did doesn't matter, but because you have been forgiven of so much more. Forgive as the Lord has forgave you. Again, I think this is what Paul would say is the ultimate strategy for eliminating the outsider. And this is what it looks like: showing each other, clothing yourselves in compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness, patience and forgiveness. And what he says next, the concluding verse that we're going to look at today, kind of wraps this all together. It's kind of his this is the strategy, but this is what glues all of this together. And I think it's probably the most important part for us to look at. To wrap this whole section together, Paul says, and over all of these virtues, everything we just talked about, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. The binding, what creates perfect unity in our character, like he was just talking about. What creates perfect unity in our small groups. What creates perfect unity in this church is love. Love lived out, based off of the character traits that he just told us, right? Love lived out. If you want to be a witness, if you want people to know about the faith that you profess, if you want to notice the outsider, if you want to eliminate the outsider, love is your best strategy. Love lived out. I think Paul simply would tell us today, in summary, how you treat people says everything. How you treat people says everything. It's your loudest message. So often, so much louder than the many words that we can say. It's your most honest testimony because it is what flows out of you, your actions and how you treat the people around you. And sometimes, guys, it is the first look at Jesus that anyone will get. Before they hear words, before they hear a teacher tell them, before they sit in a small group, the first thing that they will see is how you treat the people around you. And if we're honest with ourselves, we want these things for ourselves too, right? You want someone to be compassionate towards you. You want someone to seek to understand how you feel first, don't you? You want someone to show you genuine kindness when you walk in the room. You want someone to put your needs before their own. You want someone to be patient and gentle with you when you mess up. You want someone to forgive you when you make a mistake. Right? So why wouldn't we do that for the people around us? Why wouldn't we do that for them also? Why wouldn't we take on the challenge of being an outsider eliminator when we also never want to be the outsider? And again, if this is your first time here in Inside Out, I know, it feels like I'm mainly speaking to the people that come here all the time, but I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Because again, you can be our gauge of how well we're doing this. And I want you to know the goal of what we want this place to be, because if you haven't experienced this, what I'm talking about here yet, that's important for us to know. That's important for us to acknowledge and experience. And even if you don't subscribe to this book that we're reading, or you're not so sure about this Jesus guy, that's okay. You're welcome here. And also, don't you agree that Paul makes a point? Like, can't you agree that this is how we should treat the people around us? I think we can all agree that how you treat people says everything. In other words, like, you can say, again, all of the right things. You can have the right theology. You can say all the right stuff in small group. You can repost the reels on Instagram. You can wear the camp t-shirt. You can put the Bible verse in your Instagram bio. But if that's it, if that's all you have, if it's not backed up by action, if it's not backed up by love, guys, it's really just noise. Without love lived out, it means very little, and it does not last. And it does not impact the people around us. What does last is how you treat people, because it says everything. It says a million more words than we could ever speak. So what I want us to really realize today is that how we treat people ultimately opens doors for us. Ultimately, it lets the people around us make observations like, man, I don't know what it is with her, but she always seeks to understand how other people are feeling first. Or, hey, I don't know what it is about him, but he always just listens to me and doesn't judge me. I can trust him. What realizing that how you treat people says everything, what realizing this does is it opens doors, and it earns you a chance to share why. To share why you act the way you do. To share why you talk the way you talk. To share your story. To share, hey, I believe in a God that treats people this way. With compassion and kindness and gentleness and patience, humility, forgiveness. I believe in a God who treats me that way, who sees me that way. Guys, this really hits home for me a lot, this topic, because I'm going to share a little bit of my personal story here, because I think it helps put all of this in perspective a little bit. I grew up going to church every Sunday with my mom, and it was a different stream of Christianity. It looks very different than this on a Sunday morning, but I could have told you, like, hey, I believe in God, and I believe, yeah, he created all these things. I could even maybe tell you that Jesus died for me, but it really kind of stopped there for most of my life. Leading me all the way up until college, I moved away from home, and I'm never really following Jesus. I never really connected with the teachings that happened on Sunday. I never really bought in and did it for myself, tried it out for myself. I kind of just went. Until I attended a place in college that was very similar to this one. It looked very similar to this. Very similar kind of like model and scheme of small groups and large group and all of this kind of stuff. And I very quickly, right when I walked in the door of that place, I literally still remember it today. The first thing that I observed, the first thing that kind of hooked me, was how everybody treated me and how everybody treated the people around them. It was so different than the crowd that I had been running with previously in college. It was so different. And they had a joy about them, the way that they treated each other. They had a kindness about them. They had a compassion. They cared about what was going on in my life when they did not have to. When I could have been left on the fringes, when I could have been left as an outsider, they did not leave me there. And ultimately, that led me totally buying in to this whole church thing when I never had before in my life. And guys, ultimately, it has led me to stand right here, where I am today. Right here. That group of people that knew that how you treat people says everything. they knew that ultimately inspired a total change of trajectory in my life. It caused me to move 2 states over to pursue something that I had never considered before in my entire life. It led me to this place. Because there were people who understood that our actions speak so much louder than the words that we say, or the things that we post on Instagram. They mean so much more. And ultimately, they can show us the person who we're following. Show us what Jesus was like on earth. It's important. It has the trajectory, the potential to change the trajectory of the lives of the people around you. And I don't know the people in your life. I don't know the relationships that you have in your life. But I promise you from my own personal experience, when you take this seriously, you have the ability to impact people's trajectory in life because of how God will work through you and in you to other people. So to figure out how to do this, because it can be kind of hard to gauge how well we're doing with this whole compassion thing, or how well we're doing with this whole kindness thing, I have a question for us that I hope we can investigate today in small group. That's really simple, actually. That can help us ponder, like, hey, how do I do this well? And it's this. Would I feel safe inviting a friend to group next week? Really simple question. But if you answer it honestly, it shines a lot of light on how your group operates, on how your small group interacts with one another. Would I feel safe inviting a friend to group next week? Am I confident that when they walk in, they're going to feel welcome? Am I confident that they're going to be asked about their life? Am I confident that they're going to be looped into all of our jokes? Am I confident that they're going to want to come back next week because of how they were treated, regardless of what they believe when they walk in the room? And guys, this is actually a really important question to ask ourselves as we're looking to next week as well. I hope we're all super excited about Back to School Bash. But I want you guys to know that there's probably going to be a lot of new people in this room next week. A lot of people that have never been here before, that maybe don't know the person of Jesus. And we have the opportunity to really own this thought that our actions say so much to the people around us. So today, as you go to group, I want us to think about that. I want us to think about next week. I want us to think about the other people that are in the room. I want us to think about, if you're new here, the new person in your group today, or the new person that's been here only a few times. I want us to think about how we interact with each other rubs off on them. Does it rub off how Jesus rubbed off on the people around us? Or does it look different? I want us to ponder this. How would I feel safe inviting a friend to group next week? Let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this space of Inside Out. We thank you so much that we get to gather on a Sunday and we get to learn about what you want to do in and through our lives. And God, I pray that in small groups today, we would just be able to be honest about where we are with that. Whether we're totally buying into this, or man, I love you, Jesus, I want to follow you, I believe what you've done for me. Or if we're kind of on the fence and we're like, hey, I don't really know. I'm not sure. God, I pray that you would just help us and inspire in us conversations about what that looks like. What it looks like to actually follow you with our lives. Not just our words or the things that we say, but how we act and how we treat the people around us. And would you inspire us every day to do that better? We love you so much. And it's your son's name we pray. Amen. I'll go to group. Go to group.